The morning sun cut through the half-closed blinds of Jack Reed's small apartment. He rolled over with a groan, his hand slapping the alarm clock into silence. Another day in the life of a former military pilot with nowhere to fly. Jack sat up and rubbed his eyes. At 23, he should have been at the peak of his career with the Earth Defense Force. Instead, he found himself discharged after questioning orders during a border patrol that nearly ended in disaster. His superiors called it insubordination. Jack called it common sense. His tiny kitchen offered the usual choices: instant coffee or instant coffee. As the kettle boiled, Jack stared at the collection of model spaceships lining his shelf. Each one represented a dream now beyond his reach. "Message incoming," announced his home system. Jack sighed. Display. The air in front of him shimmered, but instead of the usual text or video call, a three-dimensional hologram formed. Technology far beyond Earth standard. Jack's coffee mug slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. The hologram showed a massive spinning space station, built around what appeared to be a captured star. Text floated beneath it. "Sunspire Academy, you have been selected." A voice emerged from the projection, deep and clearly non-human. "Jack Reed of Earth, I am Headmaster Torek of Sunspire Academy. For 10,000 years we have trained the galaxy's elite. Today we extend an invitation to you, the first human candidate in our history." Jack circled the hologram, coffee forgotten. This has to be a joke. The message continued as if anticipating his response. "This is no deception. Our observers have monitored your species for decades. While humanity remains classified as a junior species by Galactic Coalition standards, certain individuals show potential." Images flashed, showing Jack's military training, his simulator scores, and finally the incident that ended his career, refusing orders to fire on what his instruments indicated was a civilian vessel. "Your physical capabilities are unremarkable. By galactic standards," the voice continued without emotion. "However, your decision-making patterns and stress responses are unusual. Sunspire seeks diversity of thought. You provide this." Jack laughed, the kind of laugh that comes when reality becomes too absurd to process any other way. Earth had achieved interstellar travel barely 30 years ago and remained on the fringes of galactic politics. Most advanced species viewed humans as barely civilized apes who somehow stumbled into space. "The selection is a great honor," the message continued. "It is also a warning. Sunspire Academy accepts only those who can survive its training. Our mortality rate is 17%. This is not a metaphor. Failure at Sunspire often means death." Jack's laughter died in his throat. "A representative will arrive in 3 Earth days to transport you should you accept. This invitation expires in 24 hours. The hologram faded, leaving behind a simple floating button marked "Accept" in multiple languages. Jack stared at the empty space, wondering if he'd finally lost his mind. "It's real," confirmed Director Ortiz, head of Earth's Bureau of Extraterrestrial Affairs. The government officials had arrived at Jack's door within 2 hours of the message. Now they sat in his living room, looking as out of place as their expensive suits. "And you knew about this?" Jack asked, pacing the small room. "Not exactly," said Ortiz. "We've heard rumors about Sunspire. It's something between a military academy and a diplomatic training ground for the most advanced species. No human has ever received an invitation." "Until now," added the second official, a stern woman who had introduced herself only as Agent Clark. "This is a significant opportunity, Mr. Reed." Jack stopped pacing. "An opportunity for what? To die in space? They literally said people don't survive this place." Ortiz leaned forward. "Sunspire graduates become leaders, diplomats, and military commanders throughout the coalition. When you succeed, it could change humanity's standing among the stars." "And why me? I'm a washout," Clark spoke up. "Your psychological profile indicates high adaptability and unconventional problem-solving. And despite what you might think, your insubordination incident actually marked you as someone with independent judgment." Jack laughed bitterly. So the aliens like me because I can't follow orders? Great. They like you because you think differently, Ortiz corrected. Most coalition species have very structured thought patterns. Humans are unpredictable. And that's good? It's unique, Clark said. And at Sunspire, unique might keep you alive. Jack turned to the window, looking up at the sky. Somewhere up there, a space station orbited a captured star, filled with beings who thought humans were interesting specimens at best, future threats at worst. What happens if I say no? The officials exchanged glances. Nothing, Ortiz said finally. You continue your life. But humanity loses a chance to prove itself as something more than a junior species. Jack knew they were manipulating him, pushing at his sense of duty and his wounded pride. The worst part was, it was working. I need time to think. That night, Jack sat on his roof watching the stars. His hand held a small medallion, his grandfather's from the days when humans still fought each other, before the stars unified them. He flipped it between his fingers, the worn metal catching moonlight. His comm unit buzzed. The caller ID showed his mother's face. Jack, is it true? Her voice trembled with a mixture of fear and pride. How did you find out? Your father called. He said the military briefed him. Of course they had. Admiral Ben Reed would be informed of anything involving his son, despite their estrangement. I haven't decided yet, Mom. She was quiet for a moment. Your grandfather used to say that every generation has its frontier. His was the ocean. Your father's was the solar system. And mine is out there, Jack finished, looking at the stars. If you go, she said carefully, you might not come back. Jack closed his fist around the medallion. If I don't go, I'll never leave at all. 3 days later, Jack stood on the landing pad at the North American spaceport, a single bag slung over his shoulder. Director Ortiz stood beside him along with a team of scientists eager to witness an alien vessel up close. Any last advice? Jack asked. Ortiz smiled thinly. Don't die. Helpful. One more thing, Ortiz added, his expression serious. Whatever happens up there, remember you're not just representing yourself. You're representing all of us. The sky darkened suddenly as a massive ship appeared from nowhere, its hull shimmering with technology that made Earth's best ships look like children's toys. It hovered silently, defying gravity without visible engines. A beam of light shot down, solidifying into a ramp. At its top stood a figure, tall, reptilian, with 4 arms and scales that shifted color like oil on water. Jack Reed of Earth, the alien called, its voice the same as in the hologram. I am Torek. Your decision? Jack took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Behind him lay everything familiar, a planet where he was just another failed pilot. Ahead waited the unknown, danger, and perhaps a chance to be something more. He stepped forward onto the ramp. I accept. The ramp began to retract, lifting Jack toward the waiting ship. As Earth fell away beneath him, he caught one last glimpse of his home planet, blue and beautiful and suddenly very small. The last thing he heard before the ship sealed around him was Torek's voice. Welcome to Sunspire Dangerous Academy, human. Survival begins now. The ship journey lasted 3 days by Earth time, though Jack couldn't be sure if time passed the same way in deep space. His quarters were small but comfortable, with strange food that tasted like nothing he recognized but somehow satisfied his hunger. He saw no one except Torek, who appeared once a day to check on him without saying much. On what Jack thought was the 3rd morning, Torek entered his room and said simply, "We arrive." Jack followed the tall reptilian being to the ship's observation deck. The view stole his breath away. Before them floated Sunspire Academy, a massive ring-shaped station slowly rotating around a small, incredibly bright star. Is that a neutron star? Torek confirmed. Captured and harnessed, it powers everything. As they approached, Jack realized just how enormous the station was. The main ring must have been at least 10 miles across, with smaller rings and structures extending outward like spokes on a wheel. How many students are there? Jack asked. 5,000 from across the galaxy, Torek replied. Today we welcome 500 new arrivals. Statistically, 300 will survive to graduation. Jack's stomach tightened. You really weren't joking about the death rate? Torek's scales shifted from green to a deep blue. Sunspire does not joke, human. The docking bay was chaos. Hundreds of strange ships and even stranger beings. Jack saw creatures with multiple limbs, some floating in liquid environments, others encased in mechanical suits. His human form felt painfully ordinary among them. Processing first, Torek announced, guiding Jack toward a large doorway where lines of new arrivals waited. What's processing? Jack asked, but Torek had already vanished into the crowd. Jack joined the line, trying not to stare at the four-armed blue creature in front of him or the floating orb of light behind him. Nobody spoke to him, though many stared or made sounds he guessed were whispers. When his turn came, Jack entered a chamber where robotic arms descended from the ceiling. A voice spoke in perfect English. Remain still for biological assessment. The BR arms moved around him, taking samples of his hair, skin, and blood. Light scanned him from head to toe. It was uncomfortable but not painful. Species, human. Baseline physical capabilities recorded. Endurance, above species average. Reflex response, above species average. Pain tolerance, significantly above species average. Jack raised an eyebrow. He'd never thought of himself as particularly tough. Atmospheric requirements noted. Room assignment, Level 7, Block 3, Unit 12. Roommate assigned. Proceed to orientation. The door on the opposite side slid open, and Jack stepped through, finding himself in a corridor bustling with new arrivals. A map appeared on the wall beside him, a blinking dot showing his location and a line leading to orientation. As he followed the map, Jack noticed the gravity felt slightly heavier than Earth normal. His muscles would ache by day's end. The orientation hall was massive, with rising seats filled with beings of all descriptions. Jack found his assigned spot next to a blue-skinned creature with 4 arms who gave him a sideways glance. You are the human? The alien said, voice clicking oddly. Jack, he replied, extending his hand before realizing the gesture might mean nothing here. To his surprise, the alien extended a lower right arm. They call me Max, not my real name, but easier for most species to pronounce. Jack shook the offered hand carefully. Nice to meet you. We are roommates, Max said. I requested a non-gaseous bunkmate. They assigned me you. Lucky you, Jack said dryly. Max's eyes blinked in sequence rather than together. There is a betting pool on how long you will survive. The average bet is 7 days. Jack stared. Thanks for the vote of confidence. I bet 14, Max said, as if this were generous. Before Jack could respond, the lights dimmed. Headmaster. Torek appeared on a central platform, his scales now a formal black and gold. New arrivals. His voice boomed without visible amplification. You stand in a place few are invited to enter. Fewer still will remain to graduation day. Images appeared in the air above him, different species in various training scenarios, some triumphant, others clearly struggling. Sunspire accepts only the exceptional. We push beyond normal limits. Some will fail, some will die. This is not cruelty, it is necessity. The galaxy needs leaders who have faced the impossible and survived. Jack shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Look around you, Torek continued. Of the 500 in this room, our historical data suggests only 300 will complete the year. Uneasy murmurs rippled through the crowd. Your first challenge begins now. Return to your assigned quarters. Instructions await. Dismissed. Jack and Max made their way to their room in silence. The quarters were simple. 2 beds, 2 desks, a shared bathing facility with settings for different biologies. On each desk sat what looked like a glass cube. When Jack touched his, it lit up with text. Challenge 1. Adaptation report to training. Hall 3 in 1 hour bring nothing. Max raid his own cube and made a sound like metal grinding. Adaptation tests are designed for pain. Jack's mouth went dry. What kind of pain? The kind that reveals what you are made of, Max replied. Sometimes literally. Training Hall 3 looked like a massive gymnasium with obstacles and equipment Jack couldn't begin to identify. About 50 new students gathered, representing a dozen different species. A silver-skinned humanoid with no visible eyes approached Jack. "You're the human," she said, her voice musical. "That obvious?" Jack replied. "I'm Lyra," she said. "My people are somewhat telepathic. Your thoughts are loud." Jack winced. "Sorry about that." "It's interesting," she said. "Most species here think in patterns, yours jumps around." Before Jack could respond, a gaseous entity contained in a mechanical suit floated to the center of the room. "I am Professor Drath," it announced. "Today you learn your first lesson. In space, environments are rarely suited to your biology." The room darkened, and suddenly gravity shifted. Jack felt himself becoming lighter, then weightless. Around him, some species seemed comfortable while others flailed. "Space has no up or down," Drath continued. "Some of you evolved in gravity, some did not. Today, none of you have advantage." Floating obstacles appeared, moving barriers, shifting light patterns, and temperature zones. Reach the opposite side. Work with your assigned team. Fail together. Or succeed together. Jack found himself grouped with Max, Lyra, and two other aliens he hadn't met. One looked like a giant caterpillar. The other was a crystalline structure that somehow moved. "Begin," Drath announced. Immediately, chaos erupted. Some students shot across the room using natural propulsion. Others crashed into obstacles. Jack's team hovered uncertainly. "Any ideas?" Jack asked, trying to control his rotation. The crystalline being made a series of musical tones. Lyra nodded. "Rick says the obstacles appear to have a pattern," she translated. Jack squinted, watching the movements. His pilot training kicked in. Tracking multiple objects was something he knew well. "There," he said, pointing. "Every 30 seconds, a path opens up. If we time it right." Max looked skeptical. "How do we move together?" "None of us have the same propulsion." Jack grinned, grabbing a loose strap from his uniform. "We make a chain. Max, you're strongest. You go first and pull. I'll be the link." To Lyra, who connects to Rix, who holds Tarn. He nodded to the caterpillar-like being. "This is foolish," Max said, but he took the offered strap. For the next hour, they practiced, failing repeatedly. Each failure taught them something: how to coordinate movements, how to protect weaker team members, how to use each species' strengths. On their 7th attempt, they made it halfway across before a sudden temperature drop caused Tarn to convulse. "Can't handle the cold," Lyra warned. Jack made a split-second decision, positioning himself between Tarn and the cold zone, using his body as a shield. "Max, full speed now," he shouted. The blue alien pulled hard, launching their chain through the cold section before Jack's own body temperature dropped too far. They crashed onto the other side in a tangled heap, the third team to finish. Professor Drath floated over to them. "Interesting solution, human. Using your own thermal mass as a shield was unexpected." Jack, shivering violently, managed a smile. "Just adapting, Professor." Later, as they returned to their quarters, Max gave Jack a puzzled look. "You risked tissue damage to help Tarn? You barely know him." Jack shrugged. "That's what teams do." "Perhaps," Max said slowly. "I should change my bet in the pool." Jack raised an eyebrow. "To what?" 1 month. Max's eyes blinked in sequence. "I think you may last longer than expected, human." Jack grinned. It wasn't much, but it was a start. 2 weeks passed at Sunspire, each day bringing new challenges that pushed Jack to his limits. His muscles ached constantly from the slightly higher gravity. His skin had burned and healed twice from exposure to strange energies. But he was still alive, which was more than could be said for 18 of his fellow new arrivals. Jack sat in the Academy's vast dining hall, poking at food designed to be nutritionally complete for humans but tasting like bland cardboard. Max sat across from him, consuming something that looked like moving blue crystals. You survived the hive mind simulation yesterday, Max noted. Most non-telepathic species fail that test. Jack shrugged. I just treated it like a puzzle. If you can't read minds, you have to look for patterns in behavior. Lyra joined them, her silver skin gleaming under the artificial lights. It was impressive. Professor Drath has been talking about your solution. Great, Jack said. More attention is exactly what I need. Attention means people are watching, Max said. Watching means they expect something from you, or they're waiting for me to fail, Jack replied. Lyra's expression was hard to read without visible eyes, but her voice softened. Not everyone. Some are actually changing their bets in the survival pool. The latest average is up to 6 weeks. Jack laughed. I'm flattered. A hush fell over the dining hall. Jack turned to see what had caused it. A human male stood in the entrance wearing the same uniform as Jack but looking far more confident. Another human? Max whispered, forearms tensing. In surprise, the newcomer spotted Jack and walked directly to their table. He was taller than Jack, with military posture and a winning smile. Jack Reed? I'm Tom Wilson. Looks like I'm not the only Earthling here anymore. Jack stood, shaking the offered hand. I didn't know they were sending anyone else. Tom's smile remained fixed. Last-minute decision. Earth's not putting all its eggs in one basket, so to speak. Something about Tom's perfect smile and carefully casual tone set off warning bells in Jack's mind, but he pushed the feeling aside. Another human at Sunspire could only help his chances of survival. Join us, Jack offered, gesturing to their table. That afternoon, Jack and Tom faced off in the combat training arena. Each held a practice weapon, a staff that could be programmed to simulate any melee weapon in the galaxy. Begin, called Professor Drath, hovering at the edge of the circular platform. Tom moved first, his staff shifting into a curved blade. His technique was flawless, clearly enhanced military training. Jack barely blocked the first strike, his own staff morphing into a defensive shield. You're holding back, Tom said quietly as they circled each other. What are you talking about? Jack grunted, deflecting another strike. Your file says you're better than this, Tom replied, pressing forward. Show them what humans can really do. Jack frowned. How did Tom know what was in his file? But there was no time to think as Tom launched a series of attacks that drove Jack to the edge of the platform. One wrong step and he'd fall 15 feet to the hard floor below. The watching students murmured. Jack could feel their eyes, waiting for the human to fail. Something clicked in Jack's mind. Tom wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to make Jack look good. The realization hit him like cold water. You're not here to compete, Jack whispered during their next clash. You're my backup plan. Tom's smile flickered. Earth needs a representative to graduate. Doesn't matter which one of us it is. Jack felt anger rise in his chest. He'd been struggling for 2 weeks, earning every small victory, while Earth sent a ringer to ensure success. Without thinking, Jack switched tactics. He stopped fighting by the Academy's formal combat rules and fell back on street fighting he'd learned growing up. His movements became unpredictable, his style chaotic. The watching aliens went silent as Jack launched a series of unorthodox attacks that didn't follow any recognizable pattern. Tom, despite his superior training, couldn't anticipate where the next strike would come from. In less than a minute, Jack had Tom pinned, the practice weapon at his throat. Match to Reed, Professor Drath announced, genuine surprise in his gaseous voice. As they left the arena, Tom grabbed Jack's arm. What was that? He hissed. Human unpredictability, Jack replied with a grin. Isn't that why we're here? That night, an alarm blared through the station. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Emergency in Habitat Module 7, the station's AI announced. All students returned to quarters. Jack sat up in bed. That's 2 levels down from us. What's happening? Max's skin had paled to a light blue. Containment. Breach, possibly. Very bad if true. The door to their room slid open and Lyra stood there, panic clear in her posture. Jack, Max, we need help. A group of first years is trapped in the module. Jack was already pulling on his boots. What happened? Atmospheric controls malfunctioned. The module is losing pressure and heat. The emergency systems aren't responding. Where are the instructors? Max asked, joining them in the hall. Dealing with another emergency on the far side of the station, Lyra said. Please, there's no time. They ran through corridors now mostly empty as other students followed orders to return to quarters. When they reached Module 7, the entrance was sealed, with emergency barriers. A small group of students huddled nearby, including Tom. The systems locked everyone out, Tom explained. There are 5 students inside. The air is already down to 60% normal pressure. Jack examined the control panel beside the door. Can we override it? Not without instructor authorization, Lyra said. Jack turned to Max. Your species has enhanced strength, right? Can you force it? Max's forearms flexed. Not against station security systems, Jack thought quickly. Then we need to trick the system into opening itself. He turned to the gathered students. Does anyone here have technical skills? Engineering? A crystalline being stepped forward. Rix from his first team challenge. The alien made musical tones that Lyra translated. Rick says he can access the emergency systems from a maintenance tunnel, but the tunnel is flooded with radiation right now. What kind of radiation? Jack asked. The kind that will kill most. Organic life forms, Tom said grimly. Jack looked around at the gathered aliens, each with different biological strengths and weaknesses. A plan formed in his mind. Rix, can you survive the radiation? The crystalline being chimed in affirmative. Max, your species has resistance to cold, right? Max nodded. Significant resistance. And Lyra, your telepathy, can you maintain contact with everyone even through barriers? Yes, but perfect, Jack interrupted. Here's what we're going to do. For the next 5 minutes, Jack outlined a plan that used each species' unique abilities. Rix would navigate the maintenance tunnel to access the emergency systems. Max would enter the module once they got the door open, as he could handle the freezing temperatures longest. Lyra would coordinate telepathically, while Jack and Tom would prepare medical support for the evacuees. This is insane, Tom muttered. We should wait for the instructors. They won't make it in time, Jack insisted. We're doing this. To Jack's surprise, no one argued further. Even more surprising, they followed his instructions without question. The plan worked. Mostly. Rix accessed the systems. Max rescued 3 of the trapped students, and Tom proved his worth by carrying out the 4th who had collapsed. The 5th student, a gaseous entity like Professor Drath, had already condensed into a survival state and merely needed containment. As the medical team took over, Jack sank to the floor, exhaustion overtaking him. You organized a rescue against direct orders, came a deep voice. Jack looked up to see Dean Vex, the station's stern administrator, standing over him. The tall, gray-skinned alien had made no secret of his dislike for humans. Yes, sir, Jack admitted. The trapped students wouldn't have survived if we'd waited. Vex's expression remained cold. You put additional students at risk with your actions. No one was forced to help, Jack countered. Everyone volunteered. The dean's eyes narrowed. Interesting that 2 such emergencies would occur simultaneously, on opposite sides of the station. Almost as if someone planned it. Jack stood slowly. Are you suggesting this was deliberate? I suggest nothing, Vex replied. But I will be watching you, human. Both of you. He glanced at Tom before walking away. As the corridor cleared, Tom approached Jack. That was good work. Maybe we make a decent team after all. Jack nodded, but his mind was stuck on Vex's words. 2 simultaneous emergencies. Someone planning it. The thought sent a chill through him that had nothing to do with the module's freezing temperature. Someone at Sunspire wanted the humans to fail, and they might be willing to kill to make it happen. 1 month into Jack's time at Sunspire, the suspicions about Dean Vex grew stronger. 3 more accidents had occurred, all targeting training sessions involving humans. In the last incident, Tom had barely escaped a gravity malfunction that crushed training equipment to scrap metal. Jack and Tom sat in a quiet corner of the station's observation deck, looking out at the neutron star that powered the academy. Its intense light was filtered through special shields that turned the deadly radiation into a beautiful blue glow. "We need proof," Tom said, keeping his voice low. "If someone's targeting humans, we can't just make accusations without evidence." Jack nodded. "I've been mapping the accidents. They all connect to systems Dean Vex has access to." "That's still not proof. He's the administrator. He has access to everything." A shadow fell across them. Jack looked up to see Max, his forearms folded across his chest. "You should not speak of the Dean where others might hear," Max warned, sitting beside them. "Walls have sensors in Sunspire." "You think we're right about him?" Jack asked. Max's skin rippled with dark blue patterns, a sign of distress in his species. "I have access to old records. Dean Vex's homeworld had first contact with humans 300 years ago. It ended badly." Tom leaned forward. "How badly?" "His species once populated 12 worlds. After meeting humans, they occupy 3. There was a disease, a human virus that mutated. It was not intentional, but his people have long memories." Jack felt cold despite the temperature-controlled environment. "He blames all humans for something that happened centuries ago?" "His family was among the hardest hit," Max confirmed. "But that is not all. Tomorrow brings the crucible." Both humans stared at him. "What's the crucible?" Jack asked. "The most dangerous test at Sunspire. Only given to those who break major rules or show exceptional ability." Max looked pointedly at Jack. "You earned notice by organizing that rescue. Notice is not always good." Before Jack could respond, his communication device beeped. The message was simple: "Report to Headmaster's office." Immediately, Headmaster Torik's office was a circular room high in the station's central hub. One wall was transparent, showing the neutron star pulsing like a cosmic heartbeat. Torik himself stood with his back to the door, scales shifting through patterns of gold and black. "Jack Reed," he said without turning, "you continue to surprise us." Jack remained silent, waiting. Most species conform quickly to Academy protocols. Humans appear resistant to conformity. "Is that why I'm here, sir? Because I don't conform?" Torik turned, his reptilian eyes studying Jack carefully. "You are here because of a request. The Earth Diplomatic Corps has sent a representative to observe your progress." The door behind Jack opened. He turned, expecting perhaps another government official like the ones who had briefed him on Earth. Instead, he found himself staring at Admiral Ben Reed, his father. "Dad?" The word escaped before Jack could stop it. The Admiral nodded stiffly. "Cadet Reed." Torik's scales flickered with what Jack had learned was amusement. "I will leave you to your reunion." He glided from the room, the door sealing behind him. For a long moment, father and son stared at each other. The Admiral looked older than Jack remembered, the lines around his eyes deeper, his posture slightly less rigid. "You look well," the Admiral finally said. "Better than expected given the reports." "What are you doing here?" Jack demanded, anger rising unexpectedly. "And don't say it's an official observation. There are a dozen diplomats who could have come instead." The Admiral sighed, some of his formal demeanor slipping. "I requested the assignment." "Why?" "To see if you were all right." A pause. "And to warn you." Jack's anger faltered. "Warn me about what?" "Politics." The Admiral moved to the window, looking out at the star. "Your presence here has larger implications than you know. Some on Earth want humans to succeed at Sunspire at any cost. Others in the Galactic Coalition would prefer we remain a junior species indefinitely." Understanding dawned on Jack. "That's why Tom was sent. He's not just my backup, he's insurance." The Admiral nodded. "The stakes are high, Jack. Higher than one person's success or failure. Is that why you're really here? To make sure Earth's investment pays off?" His father turned, something like pain crossing his face. I'm here because my son is in danger and I pulled every string I could to get on that transport ship. Before Jack could respond, the room's communication system chimed. Headmaster Torek to Jack Reed. Report to Testing Chamber 0 immediately. Your crucible begins in 1 hour. Jack stood before a massive circular door marked with warning symbols from a dozen different species. He wore a protective suit that felt too thin for whatever waited on the other side. Headmaster Torek stood beside him, along with Professor Drath, Dean Vex, and a small group of senior instructors. Tom, Max, and Lyra had come to see him off, though they weren't permitted to approach. His father stood with them, face unreadable. The crucible is unique for each student, Torek explained. It tests not just survival skills but judgment and character. For you, the challenge lies at the heart of Sunspire. The neutron star containment facility, Dean Vex added, his voice carrying a hint of satisfaction. Jack's mouth went dry. That's the most dangerous part of the station. Indeed, Torek confirmed. The facility requires maintenance. The robotic systems have failed. Someone must go, a living being with problem-solving capabilities. And you chose me. The Dean. Recommended you specifically, Professor Drath noted, his gaseous form swirling faster than usual. Jack glanced at Vex, whose face remained impassive. How convenient. You may decline, Torek said. No student is forced to attempt the crucible. But if I decline, your evaluation will note that you reached your limits. Jack thought about Earth, about humanity's position in the galaxy, about his own future. He thought about the betting pool that now had him surviving to graduation. He thought about his father watching. What exactly do I need to do? He asked. Torek handed him a small device. The containment field requires recalibration. This tool will guide you. The challenge is reaching the core control room through areas of intense radiation and gravitational fluctuations. Has anyone completed this version of the crucible before? A heavy silence fell. Finally, Torek answered, No. Jack took a deep breath. Then I'll be the first. As the instructor stepped back, Tom approached, ignoring protocols. This is a setup, he whispered urgently. Vex designed this to eliminate you. I know, Jack replied, but I can't back down now. Then I should go instead. My combat implants give me better chances. Jack shook his head. That's why it has to be me. The unenhanced human nobody expected to survive this long. He managed to smile. Besides, if I fail, Earth still has you. Tom clasped his shoulder. Don't fail. The massive door began to slide open, revealing a narrow corridor bathed in blue light. Jack could feel heat radiating from it even where he stood. His father approached, standing at attention. Jack, he began, then stopped. Military discipline, warring with parental concern. Jack nodded. I know, Dad. Duty first. The Admiral shook his head. Not this time. He pulled Jack into a brief, fierce hug. Come back. That's an order. As Jack stepped toward the doorway, Dean Vex moved closer. A shame your species will lose its representative, he said quietly. But perhaps better to learn your limitations now than later. Jack met his gaze steadily. My species survived its own nuclear age, 2 global pandemics, and first contact with 17 alien civilizations. We're still here. Underestimating humans is a mistake many have made. Without waiting for a response, Jack turned and walked through the doorway into the blue light. The door sealed behind him with a final sounding thud. The crucible had begun. The corridor leading to the neutron star containment facility grew hotter with each step Jack took. His protective suit's temperature gauge rose steadily, already nearing its maximum range. The artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. One moment, he felt like he weighed 300 pounds, the next he was nearly floating. Just keep moving, Jack muttered to himself, following the blue line projected by his guide device. The passage narrowed, forcing him to crawl through a maintenance tube. The metal was hot enough to burn through his gloves. Jack gritted his teeth against the pain and pushed forward. Warning, his suit announced in a calm voice. Radiation levels exceeding safe parameters. Estimated survival time, 40 minutes. Plenty of time, Jack replied sarcastically. The tube ended at a small chamber with 3 doors. The guide device pointed to the center door, but when Jack tried the handle, it was locked. Of course it is, he sighed. Jack examined the other doors. The left one was marked with warning symbols he recognized as extreme danger. The right door had a simple keypad. He studied the keypad, trying to remember the xenolinguistics he'd been learning. The symbols weren't standard galactic common. They were specific to Vex's species. When faced with a locked door, Jack recalled Professor Drath saying during a lecture, "Consider why it's locked, not just how to open it." Jack smiled grimly. The door was locked using Dean Vex's native language, a test within the test. Luckily, after suspecting Vex of sabotage, Jack had been studying his species' history and culture. The keypad needed a 6-digit code. Jack thought about what he knew of Vex's people. They measured time differently, used a base 8 numbering system, and their calendar, Jack realized. They marked time from the Great Dying, when that virus decimated their worlds. Jack entered the date of first contact with humans, converted to their numbering system. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Beyond it lay the central control room for the neutron star containment field. Blue-white light pulsed from massive energy conduits that surrounded a central platform. The heat was intense, the radiation worse. Warning, his suit repeated. Radiation levels critical. Estimated survival time, 15 minutes. Jack moved quickly to the control panel. According to his briefing, he needed to recalibrate the containment field, a routine but essential maintenance task. He pulled out the calibration tool and connected it to the panel. Nothing happened. Jack checked the connections, the power supply, everything he could think of. The calibration tool was dead. No, 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 he muttered, trying again. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The tool had been sabotaged. Dean Vex had ensured Jack would reach the control room but be unable to complete his task. He would be trapped, exposure to radiation slowly killing him. Clever, Jack admitted. He was supposed to die here with no evidence of foul play, just another student who couldn't complete the crucible. But as Jack looked around the control room more carefully, he noticed something odd. Near one of the conduits was a maintenance panel that looked recently used. Jack pried it open and found a surprise, a manual override system. The old backup for the backup, Jack realized. These systems were ancient, built when Sunspire was first constructed. The manual override was simple but required physical adjustments to the conduits themselves, adjustments that would expose the operator to direct radiation. Warning, his suit announced again. Radiation levels exceeding all safety parameters. Estimated survival time 8 minutes. Jack laughed despite himself. Not much choice, is there? He removed his protective gloves. He needed bare hands for the delicate adjustments, and reached into the conduit housing. Pain shot through his fingers immediately as radiation burned his skin, but he kept working. One by one, Jack aligned, the conduits using the manual gauges to check his progress. His vision began to blur, his hands shaking from radiation poisoning. But he continued. The final conduit clicked into place. The pulsing light stabilized, changing from erratic blue-white to a steady gold. A mechanical voice announced, "Containment field recalibrated. Stability restored to optimal levels." Jack stumbled back from the controls, his legs giving out. He collapsed onto the floor, darkness creeping in at the edges of his vision. Crucible. Complete, he whispered, as consciousness slipped away. Jack awoke to bright light and the sound of medical equipment. For a moment he thought he was back on Earth in a hospital. Then he saw Max sitting beside his bed, all 4 arms holding different medical displays. "The human awakens," Max announced, his voice containing actual emotion for once. Jack tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. Max offered him water through a straw. "How long?" Jack finally managed. 3 weeks, came another voice. Jack turned his head to see his father entering the medical bay, followed by Headmaster Torek. 3 weeks? Jack repeated in disbelief. Toric's scales shifted to a pattern Jack had never seen before, something like respect. You were exposed to radiation levels that would have killed most species instantly. Humans, it seems, have remarkable cellular regeneration capabilities when properly treated. The containment field? Perfectly recalibrated, Toric confirmed. You completed your task despite sabotage. Jack's eyes widened. You knew? We suspected, the Admiral said, his face stern. When you lost consciousness, emergency protocols activated. The medical team found evidence the calibration tool had been tampered with. Dean Vex? Toric's scales darkened. Dean Vex has been removed from his position. Investigation revealed he was working with a faction that believes humans will eventually threaten galactic stability. They wanted to ensure no human ever graduated from Sunspire. Jack tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. How many students are left? Of your incoming class, 290 remain. Toric's voice softened. Below even our statistical average. And the crucible? Did I pass? Toric made a sound Jack had learned was laughter. Jack Reed. The crucible has never been about success. It is about character, what one does when facing the impossible. Many students have attempted similar challenges, the Admiral added. None completed their task. Some tried and failed. Others gave up. A few looked for shortcuts. You alone finished the task properly, even knowing it might kill you, Toric said. That is why you not only passed but earned highest honors. Jack stared at them both. Highest honors? Me? Max's skin rippled with blue patterns of amusement. The betting pool has ended. Those who bet on your success have become quite wealthy. 2 months later, Jack stood with the other survivors of his class in Sunspire's Grand Hall. His body had healed, though doctors said he would always carry traces of his exposure. Small price to pay, he thought. Headmaster Toric addressed the assembled students and guests, his scales formal gold and black once more. Today we celebrate those who have proven themselves worthy of Sunspire's legacy. Among them, one student has achieved what no representative of a junior species ever has before. Jack felt hundreds of eyes turned toward him. Jack Reed of Earth. Approach. Jack walked forward, conscious of Tom, Max, and Lyra watching with pride. His father stood with the other officials, for once allowing a small smile to break his military bearing. Toric presented Jack with a small crystal that glowed with inner light. The Star of Sunspire, our highest honor. May it remind you always of what you achieved here. As Jack accepted the award, Toric spoke again, this time addressing all present. The Galactic Coalition has voted. Based on the performance of their representatives at Sunspire, humanity's status has been upgraded. Earth is no longer classified as a junior species. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Jack caught Dean Vex's replacement, a stern but fair administrator, nodding in approval. In his graduation speech, Jack spoke briefly. At Sunspire, I learned that survival isn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about adaptation, cooperation, and refusing to quit. These aren't human traits, they're the qualities that unite all successful species. The stars belong to those willing to reach for them together. 1 month later, Jack stood on a platform at Earth's North American spaceport, watching as a transport ship descended. The same spot where his journey had begun, though he was not the same person who had left. The ship landed, and its ramp extended. Tom emerged first, followed by Max, Lyra, and 3 other Sunspire graduates. Welcome to Earth, Jack said, grinning. Max's skin displayed patterns of excitement. Strange gravity, strange atmosphere, strange everything. You'll get used to it, Jack assured him. The exchange program is just beginning. As they walked toward the terminal, Jack noticed a new group of young humans waiting nervously near a departure gate. Their faces showed the same mix of fear and determination he had felt a year ago. Sunspire candidates? He asked a nearby official. Yes, 30 this time. Your success opened the door. Jack smiled, touching the Star of Sunspire he wore on a chain around his neck. Tell them to watch out for the betting pool. As the sun set over the spaceport, Jack led his alien friends toward their new temporary home. Behind them, a ship prepared to take the next group of humans to Sunspire Dangerous, academy where the impossible waited to be overcome.